Okay, so then we have just a quick verse at the end of that sutta. Let's have a quick look at it. I'm not sure how good they are. Let's see. A mindful one who develops limitless love weakens the fetters, seeing the ending of attachments. So this is the additional benefit of developing metta, is that the fetters get weakened. You get very weak ties to the world, and so you can end all your attachments eventually by breaking through those bonds. Loving just one creature with a hateless heart makes you a true person. Sympathetic for all creatures, a noble one creates abundant merit. That's the other thing. It's enormous good merit to have metta for all creatures. So much good merit, you go straight to the Brahmaloka, and then after going to Brahmaloka, then you go to all kind of good rebirths after that as well. There are some suttas about the number of times you get reborn in a good realm from developing metta. I think you get reborn 7 times in Brahmaloka, and then you become a wheel-turning monarch 7 times after that, or something, some kind of, or maybe it's 7,000 times, I can't remember. It's an astronomical number, and you kind of go on like that for a long time. That's the result of developing metta. Do you want to be a wheel-turning monarch? Okay, now you know the way to wheel-turning, becoming a wheel-turning monarch. You didn't know that before, did you? This is what you have learned. At least you learned one thing on this retreat, how to become a wheel-turning monarch. So now you know. Comes in handy. So don't try the Trump way, try this way. The royal potentates conquered this land and traveled around sponsoring sacrifices. Horse sacrifice, human sacrifice, the sacrifices of the casting of the yoke pin, the royal soma drinking, and the unimpeded. Don't ask me about any of this. I know what the horse sacrifice is a little bit, because that's a special kind of sacrifice that the Brahmins did as a kind of very advanced ritual. But all of this other stuff, don't know. These are not worth a 16th part of a mind developed with love. And as all the constellations of stars aren't worth a 16th part of the moon's light. Don't kill or cause others to kill. Don't conquer and encourage others to conquer. With love for all sentient beings, you'll have no enmity for anyone. Okay. Sounds good. I'm glad you agree, Venerable. This is very nice. If the Venerables disagree with it, then I may have a serious problems. That's marvelous. So, now we're going to have a look at one more sutta, which is directly about freedom. And these are the opportunities for freedom. This is quite a well-known sutta, often quoted in spiritual circles, called the Vimuttāyatanasutta, opportunities or spheres of freedom. And there are different ways in which freedom can come about. And they're kind of interesting. Sometimes this sutta is quoted to show that you can become enlightened without deep meditation, but that is not what it means, and we shall see that also in a second. But it also shows you how the various kind of conditions come together to lead to the freedom that we are looking for. So this is Vimuttāyatanasutta, opportunities or spheres of freedom. So let's see what this has to say. It says as following: mendicants, there are these 5 opportunities for freedom. If a mendicant stays diligent, keen, and resolute at these times, their mind is freed, the defilements are ended, and they arrive at the supreme sanctuary from the yoke. What 5? Yeah, so if you are keen, diligent, and resolute at these times of the opportunities for freedom, diligent like heedful, keen, you are interested, your energy is roused up, you are resolute, there is a sense of energy and effort, but kind of wise effort in your practice. So this is all you have to do. You just have to be heedful, keen, and resolute, and then you are in business, is what this says. then you are free, the defilements are ended. You arrive at the supreme sanctuary from bondage. Yoke is something that binds you down. Yeah, this is the Anuttara Yoga Kemang. Kema is like sanctuary or safety or something like that. Anuttara, supreme, the supreme safety from the yoga. Yoga is not postures, not in this case. In this case, it means bondage. Supreme sanctuary from bondage. You're no longer bound. Defilements are ended. The mind is liberated and freed. So here we're going to look at one last time how this freedom can come about. So it's exciting, isn't it? You don't sound too excited, huh? Yes, you are excited. Okay, great. Yeah, marvelous. Okay, glad. Okay, so let's hear. Firstly, the teacher or a respected spiritual companion teaches Dhamma to a mendicant. Yeah, so you're listening to the Dhamma, and this is from a teacher or respected spiritual companion, someone ideally an Arya, someone who not only teaches but who has that feeling with them. They exude, or they represent, or they express the Dhamma through the way they are. And then the power of the Dhamma is much greater because of that. So there's a congruence between the way they are and what they say. It matches each other. And this is kind of so important when it comes to teaching sometimes. You get this powerful feeling that there's something true going on here. In whatever way the teacher or the respected spiritual companion teaches Dhamma to that mendicant, they always, or they feel inspired by the meaning and the teaching in that Dhamma. So we have seen this particular expression so many times already, yeah, the way you feel inspired in the meaning and the teaching. So here it is the real Dhamma that you are inspired by, not some fake Dhamma, but that's why it is the teacher or respected spiritual companion. When you hear the real Dhamma, and you kind of are attuned in the right way, you're not completely submerged in defilements or illusion or whatever, then the inspiration comes up, the meaning, the purpose of this teaching, and the teaching itself leading to that meaning. You know that there's something really powerful happening. And then, feeling inspired, joy springs up. And then you have this beautiful sequence afterwards. From being joyful, rapture springs up. When the mind is full of rapture, the body becomes tranquil. When the body is tranquil, you feel bliss. And when you are blissful, the mind becomes stilled. This is the first opportunity for freedom. Right? So this is the opportunity for freedom, and you will notice here that the opportunity for freedom, it doesn't actually take you all the way to that freedom, it just takes you to samadhi. Samadhi is the stopping point, because the samadhi is the opportunity here. When you get to samadhi, then that opens up the mind. That allows the mind then to see things according to reality, and then make an end of everything. So it is not the listening to the Dhamma that frees you here. It is listening to the Dhamma via meditation, via all the states that we're looking at here. All taking you all the way to samadhi. That is what makes liberation possible. So it is this coming together. So the idea of the teaching here is just to give the foundation for samadhi. So that the teaching here serves a twofold purpose. First of all, it has the purpose of inspiring you, so it gives rise to all of these good qualities. Then eventually, when you reach samadhi, and then maybe you come out of samadhi afterwards, because you have listened to the teachings, you also have right view. And that means that when you come out of the samadhi, you are ready for the insight, because you have been inspired by the right kind of things. So again, listen to the Dhamma. And this is this idea that the Dhamma serves a twofold purpose when you listen to the Dhamma. One is to understand how it all hangs together, what it means, understanding the various aspects of it. how the whole thing comes together, but more importantly, or just as important, is to be inspired by it, not to stop with the understanding, but take it beyond that, to feel inspired by this. And this is especially when you go on a meditation retreat. This is more like a sutta retreat, but when you go on a proper meditation retreat, then you listen to the Dhamma, then you sit down, you meditate, you feel inspired by it, and you understand what is going on. You listen to more Dhamma, you go back again. And so it has this kind of two things building on each other, building up the momentum, and then allowing the meditation to arise out of that and to build up from that. So this is the first one, the first Vimuttāyatana, and there is 4 more. What on earth could those 4 more be? Already we're listening to the Dhamma here. So then I think we come to the second one. I think this is the second one. Is that right? No, this is still the same one. If a mendicant stays diligent, etc., their mind is freed from the yoke. Furthermore, it may be that neither the teacher nor a respected spiritual companion teaches the Dhamma to a mendicant, but the mendicant teaches the Dhamma in detail to others as they learned and memorized it. In whatever way that mendicant teaches Dhamma in detail to others as they learned and memorized it, they feel inspired by the meaning and the teaching in that Dhamma. Feeling inspired, joy springs up. Being joyful, rapture springs up. When the mind is full of rapture, the body becomes tranquil. When the body is tranquil, they feel bliss. And when blissful, the mind becomes stilled. This is the second opportunity for freedom. So this is not, you're not listening to Dhamma, but you're actually teaching the Dhamma. And as you are teaching the Dhamma, these qualities arise in the mind. And then you go into samadhi on that basis. So if you ever have a teacher teaching you and suddenly they stop teaching, maybe this is what's happening. They go into samadhi, they can't teach anymore. So the thing just stops. And this happens. Ajahn Brahm always tells me about giving a Dhamma talk, and then while he's giving the Dhamma talk, he has to stop himself not to go into samadhi. Because the joy, the bliss, the nimitta starts to rise, and then you can't talk anymore because the bliss is so powerful. So you have to force yourself to reduce the bliss. You have to stop yourself from going into samadhi. And so this is the power of teaching the Dhamma, especially when it comes straight from the heart, comes straight from your personal experience, knowing what these things mean. This is kind of the result of that. Then you go into samadhi. Usually what happens is that you teach the Dhamma, and then afterwards you go back to your a room or whatever, a kuti, and then you experience some of this bliss as a consequence, and then you have the samadhi. But teaching reminds you of the Dhamma. And it's kind of interesting because sometimes the reflection may not be powerful enough, but when you teach someone else, then because you are in that situation, then that allows you to express the Dhamma maybe better articulated because you have an audience or whatever, and then the joy comes as a consequence of that. So again, the Dhamma together with the samadhi is the powerful thing here. The right view, starting with the right view, and then the samadhi, the profundity of the depth of meditation, and those two things together kind of makes this whole thing very powerful. Furthermore, it may be that neither the teacher nor the esteemed companions teach the Dhamma, or you don't, nor do you teach the Dhamma, but the mendicant recites the Dhamma in detail as they learned and memorized it. So this means that you are just reciting a sutta because you know the sutta by heart, or you are just reading the suttas on your own. So this is how you know the degree to which you understand the suttas. If you read the sutta and you get a lot of joy and happiness, it's not common. Not many people do that. You read a sutta and you bliss out because of that. But this can happen if you really understand what is going on. And so by reciting it, by reading it, by memorizing it, by investigating it, then the same thing happens again. In whatever way that mendicant recites the teaching in detail, as they learn and memorize it, they feel inspired by the meaning and the teaching in that Dhamma. Feeling inspired, joy springs up, then rapture, then tranquility, then bliss, and then you achieve samadhi as a consequence of that. This is the third opportunity for freedom. Furthermore, it may be that neither the teacher teaches, nor the mendicant teaches, nor that the mendicant recites the teaching, but the mendicant thinks about and considers the teaching in their heart, examining it with their mind as they learned it and memorized it. So here comes the examination of the teaching, carefully figuring out what it means and reflecting on it, and then that is enough sometimes to then give rise to the same sequence of things. So again, we are dealing with stage by stage more. The first way is the most powerful one. All you do is sit back and listen, and that is most powerful because it takes it takes a high degree of interest in the Dhamma just to sit back and listen so fully that you take it in 100%. The second one is a little bit less powerful because there you are teaching the Dhamma, and because you are teaching it, you are kind of using a bit more willpower, if you like, because you have to teach the Dhamma. So it's more, it takes more effort, if you like. The last one, or the third one, is when you are repeating the Dhamma. And the fourth one here is when you are examining it in detail. That is quite a lot of effort, to go into the detail, reflecting on what is going on. So each one is like a coarser way, if you like, of understanding what is happening, what the Dhamma is all about. So in whatever way that mendicant thinks about and considers the teaching in their heart, examining it with the mind as they learned and memorized it, they always feel inspired by the meaning and the teaching in that Dhamma. Again, the joy comes, then the rapture, then the tranquility, then the bliss. And when blissful, the mind becomes stilled. This is the fourth opportunity for freedom. So a lot here about listening to the Dhamma and contemplating the Dhamma. So you can see all of these things are related to the idea of Dhammanussati. Dhammanussati, the recollection of the Dhamma that we find in the suttas, one of the 6 recollections. This is all really related to that. You understand what is going on. You feel uplifted because you realize that you have this amazing treasure chest of teaching coming from the awakening itself into the very meaning of human life. And of course, if you really get that, then it is bound to lift you up, bound to make you feel inspired. And then the samadhi comes, right view, deep meditation coming together, leading to this opportunity for freedom, for releasing the heart through samadhi, then through insight. Then the last one. It may be that neither the teacher nor the mendicant teaches the Dhamma, nor the mendicant recites the Dhamma or thinks about it, but a meditation subject as a basis of stillness is properly grasped, focused on, borne in mind, and comprehended by wisdom. So this just means that you are watching the breath, or you are focusing on a skeleton, or you are doing the metta bhavana, or you're doing some kind of meditation subject, and you do it properly grasped. You know how to hold it, you know how to deal with the breath in such a way you don't get stressed, you are at ease with it, you relax with the breath, you feel peaceful with the breath, and eventually all of those good qualities arise simply through that. So this is the last way here. It's kind of fascinating. This is the last one. And this is also probably the most common one, the most common way that people will achieve that samadhi by using a meditation object. But if you can achieve all of these things simply by reflecting on the Dhamma instead. So you grasp it properly, then you focus on it, you bear it in mind, and you comprehend it with wisdom. You understand what the breath is, how it is to be dealt with, how to go beyond it, and then eventually going all the way to the samadhi. In whatever way the mendicant meditation subject mendicant's meditation subject as a basis for stillness is properly grasped, focused on, borne in mind, and comprehended with wisdom. You feel inspired by the meaning and the teaching in that Dhamma. Feeling inspired, you get joy. Feeling joyful, you feel rapture. From the rapture comes the tranquility. From the tranquility comes the bliss, and from the bliss comes the samadhi. This is the fifth opportunity for freedom, the fifth Vimuttāyatana. These are the 5 opportunities for freedom. If a mendicant stays diligent, keen, and resolute at these times, their mind is freed, the defilements are ended, and they arrive at the supreme sanctuary from the yoke, from the bond. So, there you are. This is the power of Dhamma. So when you do go on a meditation retreat, very often sit back, don't take any notes, don't sort of write down anything, just listen to the teaching, don't try to remember what is going on, and just allow it to penetrate inside of you and see how it feels. Feel the Dhamma, understand the meaning, grasp what it really is pointing to, the meaning, the source, which is the Dhamma, the meaning, which is the Atta. And as you grasp what this really is about, suddenly you feel this uplift. Sometimes you may feel tears of joy because of the beauty of what you are hearing, because suddenly you grasp what is going on. You see that you have actually missed out on this, maybe for your whole life, maybe for many, many lifetimes, and suddenly your mind opens up to this beautiful thing called the Dhamma, and then it has a very powerful emotional effect, and then that is where the samadhi can arise from. All right, let's take another 5-minute break.
Good morning, Ajahn. It's
Please.
regarding the word, the term Ariya.
Yeah.
It says 4 pairs and 8 individuals. Is at what stage do we know the person is an Arya? Is it is a stream enterer? And Aryas is only applicable to the human realm or higher realm like the sensual?
Many realms, most realms except for the low realms. But any other realm you can be Arya. So only the low realms you cannot be Arya, but all high realms you can. So the 8 individuals are, the first level is like what is called the Sadanusari, Dhammanusari. They are those who are on the path to becoming stream mentors. They will become stream mentors in this life. That's kind of the starting point of Aryas. And the rest are various degrees of Aryas. How you know if you're an Arya? Sometimes you don't know. That's the problem. Sometimes you don't know. Sometimes you don't need to. You don't need to know. I would recommend not to worry too much about it. I would say just practice, see what happens. Do the best, put in the causes, don't worry about the results. The more we worry about the results, the more often we destroy the causes. So put in the results instead. But what you can know, usually stream entry is something you will know because it is a very powerful experience. But some of these others are not as clearly defined, and so it can be more hard to actually know what you are. So. Am I even answering your question?
So in that case, an Arya or stream enterer who teaches the Dhamma to normal people like us, he not necessarily need to be a renunciant, like a monk or a nun or what. I mean, sometimes we have many Dhamma teachers who are not renunciants. So how do we know whether they are teaching the right or wrong Dhamma?
It has to agree with the suttas. This is why it is useful to know what's in the suttas. I don't think it's a good idea necessarily to try to find out whether they are Aryas or not, because it's very, very hard to know. Really, really difficult. You should look, and of course if you see bad qualities, then you can kind of, you can take it that something isn't quite right. But to actually know whether someone is an Arya is just very, very hard. if you have seen someone for a long, long period of time and they are very consistent in their conduct and they have all the qualities you would expect, they are peaceful, they are kind, they don't have any defilements, then over time you build up a sense of confidence with those people. And that is the advantage of having kind of a regular relationship with a certain teacher. After a while you know them, you know whether they have right or not. But even then it's very hard to be absolutely certain. There is a great degree of overestimation. There's a great degree of thinking that one's own teacher is an Arya. You go travel around the various monasteries and things in the world, everyone thinks their teacher is an arahant, right? But very often that's just wishful thinking because it happens to be your teacher here. And so you think they're your arahant. So it's always tricky. Yeah, we all like to think that our teacher is special, because otherwise why would we have that as a teacher? So obviously we do think they're special, but sometimes it's not the case. Sometimes not as so. So do your very best. Ask yourself if what they teach you is valuable, if it fits with what the Dhamma is actually saying, whether it fits with the suttas, and gradually you learn to kind of find your way through this kind of big mishmash of Dhamma and all kind of things in the world. You kind of steer through with all the landmines and the and the dangerous things and find your way through. Yeah, but it can be very tricky. Yeah. Okay, please.
Good morning, Ajahn.
Good morning. Yeah.
May I clarify the previous two sutta, AN 8.1? There's on page 82, there's one verse that says, "Don't conquer or encourage others to conquer." What would be examples of that, please?
Let's see, where are we now?
Page 82,
Yeah.
the last,
Don't conquer or encourage others to conquer. Okay, that's a good question. I'm not sure what the Pali is actually here. Does anyone have the Pali available by any chance? Wei Chuang is not here, so we have a deficit in Pali experts. Yeah. So first of all, you shouldn't kill or encourage others to kill. So that kind of gives you a rough idea what is going on here. If you kill, obviously it's bad, and conquering here is probably it is related to that in one way or another. Where are we? So it's a little bit strange, because conquering is usually something that kings do or governments do or whatever, not that ordinary people do. And jinati, to conquer, to win over, literally, to win over. So I guess it means you shouldn't kind of beat others or win over them or treat them badly or something like that. That's probably what it kind of means. So it's probably not just conquer in the sense of war, but probably also more like personal conquering others and treating them badly or whatever. So it probably should be understood quite broadly. One of the things to always remember about the Dhamma, especially when it is expressed in verse, very often verse are meant to be inspirational, it's not to be taken literally, so the meaning will not be very direct very often. So when they say conquer, it's kind of a roundabout way of saying bad treatment or something like that. This is kind of the idea with verse. It doesn't often, the literal meaning is not the intended meaning. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you are welcome. Yeah. Okay. Anyone else? Over there.
Ajahn, just to clarify that these opportunities for freedom mean that you actually can get samadhi without meditation. Is that what it means? I mean, you described like Ajahn Brahm teaching, and then he can see nimittas. So
so it is the samadhi kind of arises out of listening to the Dhamma. You feel inspired. But it's not entirely without meditation, because what happens very often is that you hear that Dhamma, then the bliss comes up, and then you kind of start focusing on the bliss. And so the bliss becomes your meditation object, or a nimitta may arise, and the nimitta becomes your meditation object. So it's not quite true to say that you're not meditating. It's more like this becomes the the main driver for the meditation and for the result. Or you can then take it together with the breath as well. You feel, you can feel really inspired, and then the breath and the joy kind of go together, and then they take you deeper. So when you see that sequence there, it is possible that listening to the Dhamma can take you quite far. The problem is that after a while you can't listen anymore, because your mind is going a different direction. So you have to focus on something else to really go into samadhi when it goes deep enough. So I would say it's a mixture of listening and also a kind of meditation. Although you're not using a meditation, the last one is actually like a real meditation object where you go from the very base, the very foundation. Okay, you start watching the breath. You start doing metta as a very foundational thing. Here it is more kind of comes in a bit later, if you like. You go a long way on the path before you go on to the meditation, going straight to the nimitta or whatever.
I think this kind of passage, I think maybe we've discussed it before, and I mean there's some people that interpret this to say that, that's why you don't need meditation to realize, or maybe they interpret the word samadhi differently, like just stability is enough. You don't need to go into jhanas. There are people who will read it that way.
I think you know yourself what happens in your mind, right? So you don't really need to kind of interpret this passage. If you listen to the Dhamma and you feel joy, you know how far it can go. It's kind of obvious. And you will know that you cannot enter a jhana fully by listening to the Dhamma, because at some point the listening has to stop, because you have to focus. The point about samadhi is that it's one-pointed, and listening to the Dhamma is not one-pointed by definition. It has a plurality of, to be able to understand words, you have to hear change, you have to hear differences. And so I think it's at some point you have to kind of move your mind onto the nimittas and these kind of things to take you into deep samadhi. But the other point here is that it very clearly states that samadhi is required. Samadhi, by definition, is the non-distractedness of the mind. It is the one-pointedness of the mind. That's how it's described in the suttas everywhere. And so it's kind of, I think it's fairly obvious that, that this means that you have to go through an ordinary process of deep meditation before you then are, liberated more fully. So this is, I don't never really, anyway, that's my understanding of this sutta. So,
Hello, Ajahn.
Hi. Yeah.
How is wanting to be liberated is not vibhava?
How it is not a defilement?
Vibhava.
Wanting to be enlightened, how it's not vibhava?
Yes. Thank you.
Because wanting to be enlightened is an ordinary person does not understand what enlightenment means. And because an ordinary person doesn't understand that, they cannot really want enlightenment. So only the Aryas can really want enlightenment. So ordinary people, what they want is they can want happiness, they can want peace, they can want freedom, all of these things. But if you say that you want enlightenment as the ending of things, you cannot really properly understand it until you have given up the sense of self. The sense of self stands in the way for you to understand what nibbana and enlightenment means. And because you cannot understand what it means, you cannot really want it properly. So only the Aryas can understand it properly, and for that reason they also understand the difference between cessation and vibhava, which is then annihilation and cessation, two different things. You can only understand that after the sense of self has been understood. Does it make any sense? Yeah, are you sure? Okay, maybe. All right, good. Okay, excellent.